What is the purpose of this? Why am I doing this? Or what does this mean? She is, right? Okay. Is, and this is if I say they apostrophe re and I apostrophe m and you apostrophe re. What are they doing? You can say that this is, right? Is it shorter than this? Is it longer than this? Yes, right. So comparing to writing she is or saying she is, I'm saying she is and I'm writing she is. What's the purpose of it? The only reason I'm writing she apostrophe s instead of is because it is shorter, right? It is a bit shorter. So it is a shorthand for is for to be verbs. Or concatenate or it means concatenate. This means to shorten the to be verbs so that I can say it quicker and I can pronounce I can write it quickly. All right, there's a second usage. It is to indicate what? Can you recall it? All right, can you recall it? What is it doing? It's very simple. I believe you know this already. You're just going to have to put it in words so that it stays permanent. It stays in your mind, all right? So what is the purpose of the apostrophe right here? Is this is? Is this correct? Can I replace this with is? No, right? And so what is this? If I can't use is, then what does it mean? Harry's book, right?
This book belongs to Harry.
Yes, exactly. So it indicates, what is it? Ownership, right? Ownership indicates ownership. So there are two primary functions of apostrophe. Firstly is to concatenate to be verbs, and secondly is to indicate ownership. And what if I say Harry and Meghan? How's this? And versus Harry and Meghan house. This is, right? What is the primary difference between these two in terms of meaning? What's the difference between these two? It's very simple. Firstly, is this to be verbs or ownership? Ownership, right? And are these the same? And what
No.
different?
The first thing is that Harry and Meghan live in different house,
Yes,
and the owner show that Harry and Meghan share the same home.
exactly. So this is individual ownership, which means that Harry and Meghan, they don't share the house, but the house is of private ownership of each individual, which means Harry and Meghan have two different houses and they don't live with each other, and they don't Harry doesn't have Meghan's house and Meghan doesn't have Harry's house. And there's one catch. Usually they would use plural because you can only have two different houses. Because if, say, Harry's and Meghan's house, it doesn't make sense because Harry and Meghan, they own different houses, but they're still living in the same house. That doesn't make sense, right? So usually this would be plural for some, except for some special cases only. And it is very rarely, it has very rarely come up on the SAT. So we're going to gloss over that. And Harry and Meghan's houses. That means if there are two houses, they own it, belongs to these two power couple. And if it's just one house, they still share the same house. And the only thing that differentiate between Harry's and Meghan's houses and Harry and Meghan's house is the individual ownership or the joint ownership. All right. Have you got it, Lina?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to ask you about this later, and I'm going to put special attention to you because you've done decently on your homework. But I want you to be sure about your knowledge because on the SAT, it doesn't, if you know one thing, doesn't mean that you would do it right. Because many of my students, they know one thing, but when they are in the examination environment, they get confused, right? And they get pressured. So they doubt themselves. So I want to make sure that you have that ingrained in your mind, the knowledge, so that you would never doubt yourself whenever you get in the testing room. So, Lina, you did well on your homework, but I want you to also do well on the grammar when I ask you about specific set of grammar or section of grammar, because if you understand it truly, you will never doubt yourself in the testing room. All right, you got it? All right. So next up is, I'm going to add another one. Next up is semicolons and periods. Can you recall it? Let's do Hung. Can you do it? How about
Yes.
semicolons and periods? What purpose do they serve?
They both like and a clause or separate two clauses.
What is the special thing about these two sentences? Sentence one and two. What is the only requirement of them?
They both need to have a subject and a verb.
Exactly.
They both need, yes.
Yes. So what you mentioned is clause, and that's correct. But I want to make sure that you understand what a clause is. Can you tell me what a clause is? A clause. You said that a comma or a semicolon or a period, it separates two clauses. And then you said that it separates two individual sentences that has S and V, subject and verb. So what are clauses?
They are like sentences, but they make sense on their own. What was the
Yes,
word?
exactly. But I want the form. What is the form of a clause? The very basic form of a clause. You've just mentioned it, to be honest.
That's verb.
Yes, exactly. So I want you to understand the definition. Not only should you understand what it serves, what the meaning is, the general purpose, but I want you to understand the definition of every single thing. For example, clauses, for example, relative clauses or conjunction and everything like that. I want you to understand everything. That's why I'm asking you about this. And I'll ask you again many times. Is S plus V. Exactly. And what is the last function, possible function of this is to separate to what? Do you recognize this form?
Main clause and like a linking verb.
Yes, a linking verb, or you can say it's a conjunctive adverb. Or you can say it's a linking verb, but it's not correct because linking a word, it has also coordinating conjunction. Can you tell me the coordinating conjunctions in which you can use with a comma to turn it into a period? What's the saying? How can you remember it? The mnemonic.
Can you repeat that, please? I back.
Oh,
I'm blanking out.
can you remind me what coordinating conjunctions are? For example, the shorthand version, I taught you how to remember the 7 coordinating conjunctions so that you can use it in coordination with a comma to turn it into a period. What are the 7?
Oh yeah, fanboys. So for and nor but or yet so.
Yes, exactly. I saw Lina has mouthed it out already. Fanboys, right? Here, for and nor, but, or yet so. And if you use fanboys with a comma, no, a comma is in front, a comma, it will be equal to a semicolon or a period. So in this way, you can use it to combine 2 complete sentences or 2 clauses, in which case you couldn't use with a comma alone. All right, the final one is about the dashes and colons. Dashes and colons. It's your turn, Anne. What are dashes and colons and how can you use them?
Dashes, they initiate a list. They also initiate dependent clauses, and they also explain thoughts.
Yes. So dashes, what do you think dashes? What's the equivalent of dashes in punctuation?
Like the brackets.
Yes, exactly. I haven't mentioned it, but that's correct. There's one another. One more, which we are going to learn today.
Comma.
Yes, exactly. Because if you say dashes like this, you can also put a comma like this or brackets. That's correct. And yes, dashes it is used to initiate a list or a dependent clause, in which case it can be used like a comma. And also it can explain a thought, but only if it is where in a sentence.
It's after.
Yes, it is the last part of a sentence. So it's in the after part. So what about colons?
They just introduce lists.
Can I give out definitions?
Like kind of like explains Like it gives like an example.
All right, example is correct, but it is also a list. It means if you give out an example, you're giving out specific instances, which means that they're also a list. But if you're saying that it can explain, it means that you can define the word or the phrase directly in front of it. So that's correct. And also, where can you put the colons?
Is that also after?
All right. Colon is a very, very special punctuation. What can be in front and what can be after a colon?
Is the one before like the dependent clause and then like the after is the list?
Can you tell me what a dependent clause in that case? What did you mean by a dependent?
Like it's not full, like it's not full, it's not finished.
Right, so
a-
it's the other way around to be actually, and it is an independent clause, which means there's only one requirement for the colon. It has to be a clause in front. There has to be a clause in front, S plus V. This is mandatory, always. If you see something if you see the before sentence, it doesn't have any verb, it can't be placed in front of a colon. But what is after a colon? What can you put after a colon?
The list.
You can put
Right.
anything after a colon. All right. Great. So recap, dashes, it's basically like an open bracket or a comma. And you can use it to initiate a list, to define, to give out, to separate dependent clauses, just like commas. And you can also use it to explain a thought, which you can't do with a comma. Basically, it's like a comma, but a limited version of a comma. And colons, it's still also a comma. That's why comma is so important, and that's why it deserves its own lesson. Comma serves a lot of purposes, and it can be very easy to get mistaken with every other things, with every other punctuations. So remember one thing, colons, you must have a full sentence in front, and you can have anything after. Dashes and colons, they are both at the end of a sentence. And here, semicolon, periods, it has to be used to separate two full sentences. And the last one is apostrophe. It's one of a kind, and you don't really get mistaken apostrophe with anything else. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it for the SAT punctuation. And this is marking the end of your very easy to get points. And the next part, the next season, the next chapter, a phase, I'm sorry, will be a bit more difficult. So before that, we will finish this off with a comma. What is a comma? Can you tell me, Thumb? Can you remember what is a comma? Give me a rough explanation. What is a comma?
Like it's like separate a modifier with a clause.
That's very advanced. But yes, it separates a modifier, but a comma is a separation. It used to separate two what?
A clause and a like
A clause. What do you mean clause? Is it independent? Or is it dependent? Is it used to separate two independent clauses?
I think dependence.
The first part has to be independent because obviously, if you want to finish a sentence, you need to have subject and verb. But the latter part, which is the connected part from the comma, it has to be a dependent clause, or vice versa. You can flip the switch and you can flip the position. You can put the dependent clause in front and independent clause after. But just one requirement, that you need to have at least one dependent clause after or before a comma, just beside a comma. All right. If I am to put two full clauses or two independent clauses next to each other with a comma, what will I create?
I have to use the fanboys.
Yeah, you must use the fanboys, but what is this error? What is it called?
Um,
You remember?
mm, position.
A bit suggestion, run what?
Run on.
Exactly. Run on or a comma splice. All right. Run on or a comma splice. And how can I fix it? You've just mentioned. How can I fix this?
You have to use the fanboy word.
Fanboys. Or I can turn this clause into a dependent clause, right? How can you turn a clause into a dependent clause? For example, wait a sec. Holy hell. Pull to other page. Wait. Gosh. Hang on a sec. Forget about it. I'm just gonna use my mouse. How I'm going to give you a sentence, two sentences. She is athletic. Comma, her father is an Olympic gold medalist. All right. Is this correct?
No.
Is it or is it not?
It isn't a correct sentence because it is a run on.
Yes, exactly. It is a run on. All right. So how can you fix it? There are two ways I've just mentioned. Firstly is to use fanboys. How can you use it?
I would add an and to.
Yeah, exactly. You can do an and, or you can switch the phrases into her father is an Olympic gold medalist, so she's athletic. You can do that, or you can use and anyway, because on the SAT, you're just gonna have to be correct in form. You don't need to care for the meaning, whether or not it is good or is good sounding. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the form, whether or not it is correct. All right. So you can use anything with fanboys. I'm not going to write it down. Or you can turn this into a dependent clause. How can you turn this into a dependent clause? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
All right, that's right. Now, don't forget to turn a clause into a dependent clause. You can do this. Turn it into a relative clause. Or you've just mentioned very early on when I asked what the comma is, what is it? Turn it into
Modifiers.
exactly a modifier. And for those who are asking what is a modifier, what a modifier is, I'm going to show you in a second. But first off is a relative clause. I'm going to take a screenshot here. Oh no, I'm going to, hang on a sec. Text. Let me type it real quick. She is athletic. Her father is an Olympic gold medalist. Right? To turn this into a relative clause, I must use the following words: who, whom, which, what, where, no, not what, where, when, that. And these two, in America, you don't really care about it because who and whom, it's the same in America. But if you're taking the A level in the UK, that's going to differentiate between a correct and an incorrect answer. But on the SAT, it's American, so don't care about them. I'm going to cross this out and let's forget it's never existed, all right? Don't mind yourself with it, but I still use it because sometimes I get a little British, so don't mind me about it. But if you don't understand or if you find it difficult to differentiate between who and whom, believe me, there are thousands of millions of other Americans out there who don't even differentiate between them, including the SAT test givers. So don't worry about them. Firstly, who is to use to show relation of humans. Which is to use for objects. Where is the place? When is the time? Yeah, the time. And that is to use for who, which, and for who and which. Yeah. If you say, I'm going to give an example of a relative clause. His father, who is very athletic, got a son who's very lazy. No, got a lazy son. Just say that. He, who is very athletic, got a son, a lazy son. There's a very first example of a relative clause. And I used who to indicate the relation between human and the adjective so that I wouldn't create a run-on. This is the say. Oh, I forgot this one. Very important. Whose is the ownership. Can you use it in a sentence for me in this one? How about An? Can you do this for me? Turn this sentence into a relative clause using whose.
She who's athletic.
Wait, wait. She what?
She who's
Whose
athletic.
athletic. What else?
Uh,
Okay, I'm using whose to replace her, right? Her here, and I replace it with whose. So where's the father? Because it's a relative clause should only replace the subject, because by replacing a subject, it doesn't create what a run-on creates. Not creating when it replaces a subject, the relative clause doesn't have a subject. Therefore, it is not considered a full sentence. It is not considered a full clause. So it doesn't create a run-on. That's the basic function of a relative clause, right? So if now I say that the basic function of a relative clause is to replace the subject, what's the phrase it should be? How it should be phrased? She, and who's right after she is correct, because you are supporting the word she. But the sentence, the latter sentence, how can you change it?
I get what you're saying. Like, who's like replacing?
Who's replacing her? Just give it a shot. Just try it. It might be correct. A bit of tips right here, because I'm replacing her. So the only thing that's replaced is her, right? So what else should I do?
Uh,
You can just rewrite the whole sentence with who's in place of her. So in this case, how can you say it?
she who's athletic. Wait, like, can I like switch up the sentence? Is that what you're saying?
No, you can't really switch up the sentence. That's the opposite of what I'm saying, because you can absolutely rewrite the sentence. I mean, yeah, that sounded. I mean, you can basically not to paraphrase the sentence, but copy the sentence. Just replace what should be replaced. Right, so this is in place of a subject, right? And this is in place of whose. Her father is a subject, but whose, and he, his, her, their, that is what whose is replacing. So if I replace this, all right, if I replace this, I can just rewrite the sentence and copy back whose father. No, whose athletic is not correct, because athletic, let's dissect this sentence. I'm going to erase all of this. All right. So she is athletic. This is one sentence. Her father is an Olympic gold medalist. This is another sentence. So this is a subject. This is a verb. This is the subject. This is a verb. This is run on. It's not correct. So I'm going to use whose in place of this subject, whose father. But I can't say she is athletic, whose father is an Olympic gold medalist, because a comma, this serves as a purpose of defining. This is one of the purposes of a comma, define the word right in front of it. Does athletic have a father? On?
No.
No, right? So the thing that is defining whose father is she. That's why you put it there. She, whose father. And what else should you do? You should just rewrite the sentence. Whose father is an Olympic gold medalist, is athletic. You see what I'm doing right here? I'm splitting this sentence between subject and verb because I'm inserting this phrase with a replacement of her by whose. To this part, I'm putting this later part, the relative clause, in between subject and verb, because the only reason why I put that there because it is to define she. This relative clause is to define she and to support the word she. That's why it's in the middle of she and is athletic. Did you get it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give out a brief one more example for you to see if you've got it, because some students would see a knowledge, a new knowledge. Most students, to be honest, would see a knowledge, would know it for that specific example only, and most wouldn't even know that they don't really understand it fully. So I'm going to give you many examples as long as you need, as much as you need to understand, all right? So I'm going to give you another one is he robbed the bank. Harsh robbed the bank. He is 45. How can you rewrite this? What relative word, what linking word should you use? What is the replacement subject? Who, whose, something like that. Not whose, something like that. Which word should you use?
Who?
Who, right? So how can you rewrite the sentence?
He who is 45, comma, robbed the bank.
Bank, exactly. You're just putting this in between the word which it's supposed to support or define, which in this case, he, and you put commas, exactly, and you replace this with who, because to avoid run-on, obviously. Yeah, that's correct. And you're getting hang of it, right? Everybody else, did you get it? I see that Dum has already got it. And how about Linnea and Hung? Have you got it? The relative clause.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So that is the first function. And this is the second, I'm sorry, the first way of not creating, of avoiding a run-on. This is the second way to create modifier. This is what a modifier means, because English, it has so many definitions, and if you don't understand, most of you would know what a modifier is, but most of you don't really know the name, just as for like 90% of English. Most people use it without ever knowing, having to know the names, unless you taught or you taking an exam. I don't know. Modifier is basically this: being 45. He robbed the bank. Okay. Being 45, he robbed the bank. This is a modifier. And it is in front or right beside the subject or the word it is supporting or defining. He robbed the bank and he is 45. It's very easy to understand, right? Or you can say this, he being 45 robbed the bank. But if I say this, what is, wait, do you have two phones here, Hung? Is that you? Oh, he's disconnected. All right. So rob the bank. And if I say this, let's give him a name. Let's say Richard. Richard robbed the bank. Locating at 41st West Ham. If I say this, what is the word being defined? What is the word being supported in this case? Can you tell me what it is, Hung? What is the word that is being defined?
The bank.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Can you repeat it? The internet connection is just lost, I believe. Are you getting this, Hung? You guys, you need to ensure that your internet connection is stable enough for us to maintain a continuous flow for 1 hour and a half, so that you wouldn't lose any knowledge, for example, because just 1 minute I can explain one thing and the second minute I can explain the other. So make sure your internet connection is stable. All right. How about Lina? What is the word being supported? Firstly, can you look where the modifier is? What is the modifier in this case?
The modifier is locating at 41st
West Ham, exactly. Locating at 41st West Ham is the modifier. And what is the word that it is modifying or supporting? Yes, it's the bank, because it is right next to locating at. Yeah, this is right next to a modifier. That's why it is being modified. The comma supports a word right in front or after it, which means that if you put Richard here, it means that Richard is locating at 41st West Ham. Yeah, that's the only thing to remember. A modifier modifies the word directly beside it. It does not skip any word right in front of it. So that's one thing to remember. Let's see what else. Because comma, I'm just mentioning every possible grammatic rules here in punctuation, so that you can understand when you do the homework, when you do the revision, so that you would know where you get wrong or where you get right, so you can justify or make sense of your doing. Okay, let me see. Let's see. All right, let's jump straight to homework, because I believe there's so much more to do there or to learn there. All right, so please make sure that your focus is unchanged during the course of a class, because as I can see, some of you are not paying close attention enough. So please put off any electronic devices in a corner of a room or anywhere far away from here, so that you can put your focus 100% focus here. Because, well, it's not that you're intentionally being distracted. You are never intentionally distracted. You just accidentally, but make sure that you aren't distracted for the whole course of a class, the whole duration of class. Right, first one is very simple. Dr. Evan Knopp suggests that artificial lighting, the modern convenience that illuminates many streets, storefronts, and athletic fields, may be contributing to the decline of these organisms. Can you tell me what the answer is, Tâm? The answer to the first one?
I choose A.
All right, A is the correct answer, because that, you see, this is a relative clause, and that is replacing the modern convenience. The modern convenience is a singular, so you have to put an S after. And look, a singular, which means BCD, which this is a plural, right? This is plural form. This is also plural form. This is also plural form. So BCD is wrong, R wrong, and A is correct. That's when you practice, understand why they're wrong, and then understand why they're correct. All right, next up is Hung. Can you tell me what the second one is?
B, pollinators and colonies.
Yes, exactly. Pollinating colon. I believe we have done this already. So I'm just going to gloss over. 3. How about this, An?
C.
C. Let's see. So outlaw is obviously wrong, because how can you be outlaw visitors, right? Before the plants flowering began, some of the plants were covered with mesh bags to exactly prevent, revoke, oppose, and outlaw. They are very, very wrong on first glance. And next up is Lina. The fourth question, please.
4B.
4B, let's see. Visits from pollinators. Yes, exactly. So one other way to not be mistaken for a run-on is to remember the form. While, comma, this is correct. You can use clause SV or SV up here. Although, SV, despite, and despite is not a clause, but a noun phrase. The same is in spite of. Noun phrase also, and a clause, S plus V. See? The next way is to remember the forms of some fixed forms. For example, while, although, despite, in spite of, etc. When, for example. So it's just fixed phrases, and you can remember the forms. So in this case, you can always change while to here and keep the comma. It stays the same. All right. Just make sure the meaning of the sentences stays intact, or else you're wrong. Next one is which one most effectively combines? This is, can you do it, Tâm?
I choose D.
All right, D. Do you remember how you can do this?
First I remove the longest sentence. I choose the method, the shorter the better, and I see that I thought C and D are the shortest, and I read and choose B because it makes more sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense. And it sounded odd, right? It doesn't sound coherent. It doesn't sound good. So D. Excellent. So she just mentioned one method, which is shorter is better. So this stayed true for, let's see, 2016 to 2018. But things changed, especially on the digital SAT. So it's no longer shorter is better, but two shortest is better. So you can remove the two longest answers, for example, A and B. They are the two longest. So you're leaving with C and D, which are the two shortest answers. In this, effectively combined sentences. This is one type of a question which you can use this to quickly choose or circle out the wrong answer or cross out the wrong answer and choose the right answer pretty quickly. Just focus on the two shortest answers, and then you work your way from there. You don't need to read the whole answers to waste your time. You just need focus on the two shortest. If you are to encounter the word effectively combined or anything like that on digital SAT. Excellent. You choose D, exactly, because D makes more sense and it sounds a bit better. And 7. How about 7? 7, can you choose it for me? 7 and 8. Can you do this for me, An? So read this carefully, and then I'll scroll down the graph.
Alright, could you go down the graph?
Okay, here's the graph.
Alright, could you go back up? I could. B.
All right, B. Let's see. The 7th question. B. 15 fruits per plant, whether they were in the dark side or self-fertilized. When you encounter a graphical question, see what's in front and after. Read carefully the whole sentence, one sentence only, which is the sentence in question. 6 is D. Because they couldn't be visited by pollinators, the baguette plants self-fertilized, and thus averaged only about average. What is the average in illuminated sites? So let's say illuminated sites, baguette, it's some less than 20. Yes, 15. Exactly. How about 8? Read this and do it first. Do 8 also. Read, and then if you need to scroll down, ask me.
Alright, could you scroll down?
Right. Finish. Now scroll up.
Oh yeah, could you scroll up? C.
Let's see. On the other hand, unbagged plants from the dark sides produced an average of 90 fruits per plant, whereas bagged plants that were exposed to artificial light produced an average of 78. So this is the one at 30%. It doesn't show. So 78. 78. Let's see. What is the nearest to 78? It is below 80. So this only thing. Illuminated sites in unbagged plants? Yeah, C, the only thing. Exactly. Right, so these questions, the ninth question, I crossed it out because on the on the new SAT, digital SAT, it doesn't test it anymore. So, and these are the questions which differentiate from hard to easy. This is the considered a hard question, difficult question on the paper SAT on the O1. So it's not necessary for us to do because we are stepping to the digital one. And well, you shouldn't have to do it, but I still write down on the comments because that was the machine doing, and I haven't polished it enough yet. So maybe next time I will cross them out before commenting, but you know. And next up is the 10th question. Hung, can you do it?
Yes, 10 is A, no change.
No change. How about
Yes.
correlated in? How about correlated in? How about it?
The collocation is wrong. It's with. Correlated with, not in.
Correlated with. Ah, that's a fun way to see it. Correlated in. Actually, it's still correct. For example, if
Is
you
it?
are late,
Ah,
if you're late for if you're on time, hey, wait. On time versus you're in time. These are still correct, but they are fundamentally different. On time meaning you are you're early, maybe. You're just enough time to be prepared and everything. Time is not pressured. But in time meaning that you just close, very, very close to being late. That's in time. That's the only difference between the preposition on and in. You just need to change it and the meaning it changed. So on time, in time, they change. So correlated in and correlated with, they're very different also. Correlated in means that, meaning correlated in is, let's see, because when you've read enough, you would know that what is right and what is wrong. And you don't necessarily have to, kind of remember everything. But I suggest, no, this is what you should do, or what you have to do. Every time there's a sentence like this, look them up. If you don't get it, you get it wrong or right, just look every single phrases up, understand everything deeply, so that you would know whether they're wrong or whether they're correct, because these are the type of questions which you either know it, you can do it, or don't. You can't do it. There's no possible way for you to just make sense or just come up with an answer out of the blue, because that's not possible, because these are the fixed terms. These are the fixed phrases. So I would suggest you to learn them all, because on the SAT, there's only a handful of phrases you can do. So take notes. Correlated in is more like comparing, and coincided is in parallel with, right? So the scientists also found that the decline in nighttime pollination visits coincided with a decline in visits from daytime pollinators. It means that the two numbers, the two numbers, they change in parallel, they change simultaneously. But if I say correlate in, it is more of a comparison. For example, when I say the correlation of a bee and a butterfly, I can compare it to, because they are both fly. They can both fly. So the correlation of them is the ability to fly. So it's more like comparison. So it's not to say numbers. When you say the comparison, it's about different metrics. It's not about different values. Okay, so more you know. Next is the 11th question. How about Lina?
11C.
11C, let's see. This is a specific question, a specific case of preposition. You can see that the only different, oh, there's, oh, okay, I see it. It's more than just preposition. It's about, see, present and presence, how they sound. This is very tricky. So for Native Americans, so on, take notes about this, because this is very tricky for Native Americans, because Americans tend to pronounce everything quite quickly. And when they do the SAT, when they take the SAT, they tend to overlook. For example, they don't say present or present. They don't say present or presence. They say present in, present of. It's basically essentially the same. So you can very easily gloss over many of the tiny details. So pay special attention. Don't read with your eyes. Read with your mouth. Obviously, in the testing environment, you can't really read loudly, but once you just read it ever so slightly, you can hear it, and your brain can process it better. So don't only read it with your eyes. These are the questions which you don't have the right to be wrong at, because they are very easy. And if you're making a mistake on this, it means that you're wasting a lot of points, because these are the questions which subtracts you the most and will also keep you, get you the most points if you do it correctly. All right, the 11th is presence of. Let's see. Whatever the reason, artificial illumination clearly has adverse effects on plant pollination, and the increasing, yes, presence of artificial lighting may pose a major problem in biodiversity. Presence is the noun, and present or present. Present is the present, is the now, right in the present, or a gift. And presence is the appearance, is the being at a place or being apparent. That is presence. And present is very different. So correct. 12th. Let's see. Can you do it? Tấm. Can you do it?
I choose B.
Let's see. Why did you choose it?
Because I found C is short, but like it. I don't know how to say it in English, but I found it the best fit for that position, because reflex only is kind of short and
Right.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. So you using shorter is better, but it's not that simple. Shorter is better. But this is very different, because the shortest one, it lacks something that the almost shortest one has. An information, new trend. But how about this C and D? Why did she cross out? What did Thumb cross out? Let me explain. New trend or tendency. This is futile. This is futile. It is unnecessary. So this is repetitive and it's long. It doesn't make sense because it's repetitive. And these are the kinds of questions about repetition. It's not just shorter is better, but you need to see if in this sentence, you need to read a whole sentence. Please, please, when a sentence is asked, do not read something around it. Read the whole sentence, please. Okay, so you won't miss a question like this. Reflection of a new national trend. How about United States? A national trend in workplaces across the United States. You see, it's repetitive and it's unnecessary. So national trend and United States is very wrong. D is wrong, but A and B. A, it has reflects, and B, it has reflects a new trend. Either B is correct if in this sentence there's no mention of a new trend, and A is correct if in this sentence has already mentioned a new trend, and B is futile because it's repetitive. Let's see. Decision, employee to customize this is. There's no mention of a new trend. So A is lacking something and B is having something A doesn't have. So it not only is B the second shortest, but also B has enough information. It has more information than A gives without being futile. All right. So these questions, not only will it appear so many times in different forms, but it will be cases where the shortest wins, or the second shortest win, because it's not fixed. It's very random, and you're gonna have to be dynamic. You have to be flexible, and you're gonna have to read the whole sentence. All right. 13. From retail services to large corporate offices. Can you do it on?
D.
D, let's see. Why is A wrong? Let me zoom in a bit. Why is A wrong?
Because the it's like it's not a full clause.
Yes, exactly. This is a semicolon, and it expects a full clause, and A is wrong. How about C?
Is it because you can't like put fanboys after period?
Yes, exactly. You can see that colloquially, you can say that and boosting or but or anything. You can put but and fanboys in front of a sentence every time it's informal. But in the context of the SAT, it's very formal. So using and right after a period is very wrong. So C is wrong. Exactly. How about B? This is very interesting. How about B?
I mean, I chose D because I just thought B was like really wordy and it was not the best.
Yeah, wordy, but on the SAT, it doesn't matter if it sounds not really good. What matters is if it's correct or not in the form, in the sense of a form. Is its form correct? Right. So this is what we call a modifier, some kind of modifier. When a modifier appears in the middle of a sentence, or to be honest, appear anywhere, additionally is a supportive phrase. It supports the word worker or this phrase, or the phrase in front of it. It's just used to support a sentence. So it doesn't matter. It is an non-essential clause. So it doesn't matter if we cross them out, right? So we just cross them out. Okay, we can cross them out. And once we cross them out, it leaves with one single comma. You can't cross out every single comma. You have to leave one, all right? If this is one single comma, can you reread it and find me the error?
What did you say? Like the comma? What were you saying?
Okay, so additionally is a non-essential clause. So on the SAT, you can just automatically cross them out and you don't care about it and leave with just one comma. And just assume comma additionally comma is one comma. Can you reread the sentence and find the error?
Because then it say they can boost morale among current employees and it's not full. It's not a full clause.
Is it full clause or is it not?
It isn't.
This is a verb. It's a modal verb. Can is a modal verb. Modal verb. It's also a verb, like to be verb. It's also a verb. So can is a verb. And they is, what is they?
Pronoun.
Pronoun, so it's a subject, right? Subject and a verb. Is this a full sentence?
Well, I still think no, because they can boost like. Nah, just
All right, so I will remind you guys, our classmates, once more, is that when An is explaining or when An is giving his own answer, I would expect you guys to give your own answer in the chat, either privately or publicly. It's okay, but I want to keep all of you engaged, not just one person at a time. All right. So when you have your own answer, type them out. And so far, I haven't seen any this session, which is very odd for a class. So what happened, guys? You guys need to keep in touch, right? You guys need to keep active. So not just one person per time. It's the whole class versus the homework. All right, not just one per one question. You can't just do one question then leave it there for the next 4 questions and expect someone to come back later and ask you the 4th question. No, you have to do the full 4 questions. And if you have any, well, any question for me, just ask it, because if you don't read it, you don't even know. If you don't answer what An is answering at the moment I'm asking, you're not doing enough. As I asked An, why is B incorrect? I would expect you guys to give your own answer, give your own version of it. Why is B incorrect? Type it in the chat. Don't interrupt An if you don't want. Just type it in the answer, in the chat box. It's all right. But I haven't seen it this session, and that's very surprising for our class. So I will explain this. An said that this is not really a full sentence, but let's see. They is a subject and can is a verb. And also, look, from retail services to large corporate offices, this is what we call a modifier, because this supports the word employees. From retail employee services to large corporate office, they find the flexible dress code can make company or anything like that. It affecting the word employees. So it is the modifier. It's the modifier. If it's a modifier, you can just cross them out and find it. Well, employers, it's subject. Are finding, are is a verb. So this is a verb, and we crossed additionally out, leaving with just 1 comma. This is a comma, and this is also a subject and a verb. It creates a run-on. That's why this question, this answer is wrong, because we are practicing, you guys. This is not a testing. We're practicing, so we have to understand why it's wrong and why it's correct. All right. So B is incorrect because it's a run-on. Because additionally, you cross them out, it becomes a non-essential clause, because additionally, it doesn't change the meaning of it. You just cross them out, and leaving with subject and verb and subject and verb. So yeah, you get it. All right. So next is 14th. 14, how about Lina? Can you do it? 14.
14C.
14C. So what's this kind of question? What is this asking?
It asks the work display for
You're asking about pronoun, right? So pronoun is basically what you use to replace a word without making it sounding like repetitive. For example, I say Lina is a smart girl. Lina is hardworking. Lina is studious, for example, like that. I can say Lina is a smart girl. She is hardworking. She is studious. And that doesn't make it sound repetitive. And that's precisely just what a pronoun serves. The purpose, the sole purpose of a pronoun is to make a sentence sound better. And it prevents repetitive. And the most important thing is to sound better, because once a pronoun is placed, it has to serve a purpose to make a sentence clearer without making it repetitive. So if you are to put a pronoun in a sentence and make you guys read it and you don't understand what the pronoun stands for, it means that the pronoun is incorrect, right? So let's see if this makes you hard to understand a sentence, or if this doesn't replace anything, it will be wrong. Right, the first one is a. Them is about an object, and is it plural or singular, Lina?
Plural.
Plural, right? Them is plural. Him or her, believe me, on the ICT it's very gender neutral. So him or her is almost 100% going to be wrong, because there's also a pronoun they, them, I believe. Everything in American political environment right now, so him or her is basically wrong at all time, because there's not just two genders in America. There are more genders in America than any other country in the world. All right, next is, so B, you can almost know that it will be wrong. That's just the mindset of test givers. Well, and employees, the flourishes. Can flourish retain greater sense of personality, identity, personal identity? Can flourish does this? No, it can't, right? So the flourish wrong. And employees, the only thing that suitable that doesn't make it sound repetitive, and because there's no employees being mentioned before, so this is correct. Because there's no employees being mentioned before, so you can't refer to the employees as them, because if you use them, there has to be a noun before so you can refer to. And if there are too many nouns before, you get too convoluted, you get too confused, it means that the pronoun is wrong. Next up is, wait, is it? Yes, it's C. 15. Can you do it, Hung? 15 is quite easy, so you do 15 and 16.
15A, no change, and 16 is D.
16 is
More than half.
D, 15 is
A.
A. Let's see. Individuals' motives. Yeah, this is quite easy. So just A. Let's see. 16. This is what I call. No, this is not a long question. We'll stumble across the long question later on, but the writer wants to set up the information that follows in the sentence with an accurate interpretation of data from the table. Which choice best accomplishes this goal? What did you choose, Hung?
D, more than half.
More than half. Let's see. Let's check, because graphical question is just apparent. According to a 2016 study, essentially none of those want to be employed by a company with a relaxed dress code. 31% would prefer with a business casual dress code. 27 casual or no dress code. One more than half. Yeah, it's more than half, because 31 plus 27 is 56, so it's more than half this. They would prefer to have a relaxed dress code, so it's more than half. Exactly. 70 is very, very new and very difficult. Can you do it, Thumb?
I choose A.
Firstly, why did you choose to add it? Does it give out any additional information? Is it related to the paragraph?
There's in a sentence above, they kind of give out like the numbers. So I think that
Yes.
this sentence can be added to the paragraph to make it more have more details and support the main ideas.
Yes, exactly. Because this paragraph is talking about how many percent talk about the what is it, the numbers, and they're talking about the survey. Exactly. Yes, the survey. They're talking about the survey and talking about how people would prefer having relaxed dress code to not having a strict one. So firstly, you can see that A and B are correct because it is directly related to the topic of the paragraph. And C and D, they're very wrong. And about when you know that it is edible, is it you most certainly going to choose it right. That's why you first have to cross out the 2 no's or 2 yeses first, and then you're going to choose why did you cross them out. Firstly, well, it's never been mentioned before. Opposing point of view is very wrong. So A is correct. Next one is, let's see. 18 is crossed out. These are very easy. And 24, let's see. Hung, can you do it?
24 is B. Size.
Emphasized or enlarged?
Size.
Well, let's see. This invisible customization might create what media CEO termed a filter bubble, a biased worldview that is, yes, enlarge is very wrong. Emphasize is a bit more precise. That's it. And next one, let's see. Next one is, can you do it on? 32.
C.
Let's see, 32, C. Let's read the sentence before, and because this seems like a transitioning sentence. The vast majority of participants in Epstein's experiment, 99.3% did not recognize the bias in the results. Something. A 2012 survey from the Pew Research Center indicated that 66% of respondents believe that results obtained through a search engine represent all available information rather than a personalized selection. So it's kind of supporting this, right? This is supporting the sentence prior. So politicians hope to counteract this. This means to fight back. So it's wrong. A is wrong. Mitigating factors, but mitigating, they're just opposite. So D is also opposite because reversed mean that it's opposing, opposite. And this is the only thing, no mean atypical. So it means that this is not uncanny. This is not a minority. This is a majority. Not one, just like, it's not like 1% of people believe this. It is a common thing. So it's not atypical. Typical is common. Atypical is non-common, but by no means atypical is not non-common. So it's very common. All right. So remember the phrasing. It might be very confusing, but you need to understand them all. Okay. Can you do this? Let's see. Is there any more? Yeah, no more to take notice. Lina, can you finish up with the 34th question?
D.
What is it?
It is D. D.
Not D. Let's see. When I see D, I would assume that you know that this is a non-essential clause. This is a modifier, right? So can you find the modifier in this sentence for me? If you use D.
An organization dedicated to supporting
Indigenous artists, right? That's correct. When you need to read the full sentence because this question is very tricky and it can fool you all if you don't read this carefully enough. That's why you need to read the full sentence, not just before and after. A study led by First Peoples Fund, comma, an organization dedicated to supporting indigenous artists, comma, revealed that this is the verb of a 2015 study. It's not the verb of indigenous artists. So it has to be a comma. When we put a comma here, this is by default a modifier. So this is the modifier, which is a non-essential clause. You can cross them out. It directly supports the First Peoples Fund. It's just defining what the First Peoples Fund means. And by crossing them out, you may be, well, it may not be wise to cross them out, but once they're put into two commas, which mean that it's basically serving a purpose of a bracket, of two brackets, two circle brackets, you can easily cross them out because they are non-essential. And grammatically, they're very unnecessary. But when it comes to meaning, when it comes to making sense of the sentence or the context, it's very necessary. That's why you should just cross them out in the SAT, but you shouldn't do it in real life, in English in general. So in this case, you can just cross out an organization dedicated to supporting indigenous artists. You can see that a 2015 study led by First Peoples Fund revealed that roughly 4 out of 10 households on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, you see, it makes total sense and it is very coherent. It sounds very good, right? It sounds very concise. So that's basically it. That's all the questions which I want to the latter part is very much just repetition of the first part. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That concludes our lesson for today. Do you guys have any more questions? All right, let's see. We will have an entrance exam this weekend, so I would expect you guys to relearn everything you've learned before. And on Sunday 8 a.m., we will have an examination. It's about 1 hour, and I'll extend the deadline to your timeline because your timeline it's 12 hours later than ours. So you're going to take yours also on Sunday, 8 a.m. All right. And everybody else also takes it on Sunday, 8 a.m. It's a very quick evaluation exam, about 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe. But that's just to evaluate how far you've got and how much you've learned. Right. If you don't have any more question, I would assume that our class ends now. All right. So I wish you guys have a good day, have a good night, and think goodbye. See you again. Bye bye.
Bye.